It's your boy Richard back for another Kingdomhood Conversation. I'm actually doing a pop-up. I didn't even announce this show. I didn't even put any flyers out. I just kind of just popped up on y'all on this Sunday. But I told y'all to be coming every Sunday at 5 p.m. So just be aware of that. So the week before last, I talked about, I want to get right into this. In the interest of time, I talked about Kingdomhood, and I want to go into more detail what a Kingdomhood is, because there's been a lot of questions about it. And on my previous shows, I was talking about there's 5 pillars of Kingdomhood. There's 5 important elements of that go into making a true Kingdomhood. And the first one is economics. Okay, there you got economics, you got education, you got politics. You got, policing, you got healthcare, and you have nutrition. Those are all the 5 elements that a community needs to have in order for it to be a protective Black community. Again, this is nothing that's created. This is nothing that I invented. This is simply what I'm seeing that other races have done. And this is simply something that we have done in the past. So that's where all this is coming from. I draw from Dr. Claude Anderson. You hear Dr. Umar talk about this a lot. Just very, very few people. There are people in history that have talked about this as well, but it is something that has never it has never caught any kind of momentum in this bill. Now, we have done it before, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, because I want to start from a historical perspective and work our way up. And how we can have some ideas about getting this done. Now, let me be clear. I don't have all the answers, and I'm not 100% sure that my plan is the end all. Matter of fact, I know it's not the end all of end all, and I don't know how much if it will work. There's probably a whole lot of more intricate parts that go into developing a community, what I call a kingdomhood, a safe haven from African Americans, a protection for young Black boys, something for them to look at when they wake up every morning and walk out of their homes. They are inspired by what they see walking through their community. Okay, who they see in ownership, what type of police they experience, what type of schools they walk into, the overall look and feel of the city, like Arabs has, like Eastern Indians has, like white people for the most part have, like the Jewish community have, like Asian communities have. They all have their own particular city or section that has all the businesses, all the cultural elements, and everything that they like, that they feel protected and they feel like home. Like if you go to Chinatown, you're gonna think you in China, because they wanted that culture, they wanted that particular city to feel like as if they were in China. And you see that with every other race too. You definitely see that with Latinos. You'll go to a mall strip, and you'll see it'll have a Latino. Matter of fact, there's one off the 91. You see a Latino name, and you go in there, you see a bunch of Latino businesses. So that is because they are from other countries, and they want to feel like they're in their home country. You can go to some parts of LA where you would think you're in China because all they speak is Chinese. You go to some places in LA, all they speak is Spanish, because they're like, hey, I'm Spanish, I'm from Mexico, and I want to feel like I'm in Mexico here in America. Well, if you look at Black folks, they don't have that. Okay, and there's definitely some historical reasons why, but we can't sit up here and make excuses about history. We just got to see if we can build and move forward and go about pretty much building a Black town. That's what Kingdomhood is. It's not just a logo that goes on a shirt. This is not, somebody's put on a hat because I had nothing else better to do. This is really something that I really believe in, and I really believe it's the only answer. I really believe building a community, having a safe community for Black folks to live in, that they ain't got to worry about being killed by police, because the police are watched out and have a civilian overwatch over those police that are mainly Black people from the community. That That's a safe haven. They don't have to worry about getting killed. But the first piece of this is economics. So let's talk about economics and what Black people have contributed to America as far as economically. Before slavery, America was 13 fragmented colonies, pretty much a broke, poor down nation that didn't have any type of political strength, military strength, any type of government force. They didn't have really a respect around the world. So then they got smart. They needed a way to get money, because you had to understand that when the English settlers came over here, Britain and where they came from, Europe was in dire straits. So they came over here to the New World looking for a better life. When they got here, they didn't know how to hunt. They didn't know how to clean. They didn't even know how to wash their butts. They didn't know how to brush their teeth. I'm telling you, this is something you won't find in any of your history books in school. They know how to do a damn thing. So when they got over here, they pretty much learned some of the things from the Indian. How the Indians had to teach the European settlers in the New World everything. They knew absolutely nothing. I don't know. I think they lived in caves over in England, wherever they're doing, and they lived in their own urine and feces. They know nothing. So they learned that. So they learned how to till land and how to grow from Indian people. But then you have this vast land, and how you going to grow a country without money? That's where slavery comes in. So the first slaves were Spain in the 1500s. The Spain went to Africa and got slaves and brought them back to Spain. Then America saw this and said, wow, slavery, that's the way you make money. So then you guys know, I don't need to go into all the history of it, but then they went over to Africa, 1619, and started bringing slaves over. So from 1619 to 1865, talking about a 253-year period, America went from the brokest country in the world, 13 fragmented colonies, to a fully functioning military power, government, and political structure based on 253 years of free labor. They built an economic empire on the backs of slaves. Okay, so then it got so then slavery so-called ended 1865. You got 4 million Negroes in this country that white people didn't care to deal with, didn't want to deal with. They just freed them, and then all hell broke loose, because you freed the slaves, but then you freed them to do what? They had no jobs, they had no education, they had no homes, they had nothing. So we pretty much, after slavery, started from scratch. But during slavery, we had a lot of inventions that, of course, white people stole because we were just property. After slavery, we continued to grow. Matter of fact, we had Reconstruction, where Black people had jobs and politics and moved into white neighborhoods and co-mingled with white people and had babies with other race, with whites and Blacks had babies. They lived together. In fact, you have Black people who actually managed white people. You had Black people in Congress as well. So there was some progression. Well, then after 10 years, about 1877, all that ended. It was just shut down. Rutherford B. Hayes comes in, the Great Compromise. He ends Reconstruction, right? So then we're back to square one. Okay, so, but how we were able to build, my point for saying this is we were not allowed into the mainstream of white America. Reconstruction ended, and then you saw the rise of the KKK, Benjamin Tillman, one of the most vitriolic racists in the history of the government, started the KKK. They started lynching Black folks, pretty much out of fear. And then Jim Crow started. So Jim Crow was the law. The police enforced the law. In other words, Black people can't live in the same neighborhoods. You can't go to the same schools. They ain't go hire you. In fact, they came with all these black code laws to make sure you stayed in locked out of America's dream. And, because when slavery ended, they started statewide prisons and they started the black codes. So in other words, they can arrest a Black man for any reason and throw him back in jail. So slavery actually continued. It was just slavery in another name. When it started the convict leasing program and started sharecropping. And that went on to about well into the 1940s. Like I always say, FDR actually ended slavery in the 1940s because he didn't want the Germans and the Japanese to use the way they treated Black people against America. So there's plenty of books out there. Matter of fact, Slavery in Another Name is a real good book that you can look to and get more details on that. So anyway, just jumping forward from about 1850 to 1910. Of course, we couldn't work with white people. We couldn't live in the same neighborhoods. We pretty much were we pretty much were strapped to working together. Well, in 1850, for every one black dollar, there were 32 white dollars. By 1900, that was cut in half. It was cut in half because black folks built media companies. They built newspapers, and the black wealth really started to grow because we had to depend on each other. All we had was each other, and we built something together. So we were able to cut the wealth gap between whites and black people in half in a 50-year period between 1850, 60-year period, and 1910. Were we worse off? Were we better off in 1850 through 1910 than we are now in 2021? Did we have more education? Did we have more opportunity? Oh, no. No, that's not it. We weren't integrated yet. So then we jump forward. And, you know, everybody knows about Tulsa. LeBron James, shout out to him, has done a really, really good documentary on that. If you haven't watched that documentary on Black Wall Street, you should watch it. Okay. But of course, we were segregated. So we built our own city, right? We had our own law firms, architecture, grocery stores, barbershops. Black people had, their own law firms. Pretty much we had our own city that we owned and controlled. That was an element of true freedom. So what happened? And we all know the story. White people bombed it. We did the same thing in Rosewood, and they burnt it down. So black people, when they built their own city, it was utterly destroyed. Now you have to ask yourself, why was that? Now we know it was because of racism. We know that. Just a little bit about Black Wall Street. Of course, if you guys don't know the story, they made up some stuff about some black guy trying to touch a white girl. And that was their reason to come in and just kill 300 black folks by bombing the city and destroying and dropping bombs out of helicopters. Now, that wasn't no homegrown scumbag, country bumpkins, white jackasses that had nothing else better to do. That was a government hit. Okay. They had helicopters and they bombed it. Here's what's so gangster about it. After they bombed it, they went, and all the black people who actually survived Black Wall Street, they arrested them and threw them in jail and tried them for inciting a riot. Wow. Is that not jacked up? Man. So anyway, economics. We build a Wall Street, they bomb it. We build Rosewood, they bomb it. And anything else we do, they even bombed Philadelphia in 85. The point for all this is that anytime black people want to pursue true freedom and build their own city, that's when you get pushback. And we have not done it since. I don't know, it's because I have my own opinions about why it hasn't been done yet. And I'm gonna give those to you. But just from a general sense, is it fear because they may destroy it again, or it's because it's a desegregation? It's because if you allow black people to get this so-called freedom, this pseudo freedom, well, they can go get them a degree, a master's degree, and graduate with a ton of debt and get them a nice little job and move in a white neighborhood, that shows black people are moving forward. And the ignorant people who are not understanding what economics really is think that because there's some black people who've made it, and you can look at an Oprah, which is an outlier, or you can look at a Bob Johnson, or you can look at a guy that maybe went to Harvard and got a master's degree and is working in corporate America and doing very well, that, oh, see, they made it. See, it's possible. But they never look at the total sum of where black people are living in. Because if you look at the average of the black man, we are far behind other races as far as economic and progression. Yeah, so we had the Wall Street, they bombed it. We haven't been to build one since. Okay. So we get into the 1960s and we got like King, who's really fighting for integration. Malcolm X wasn't about no integration. Marcus Garvey wasn't either. But King was about integration. He's about, okay, he was an advocate of fighting against Jim Crow, and he wanted Black people to have equal rights and equal protection of the law, which is fantastic. But here's the thing, they gave King incremental change as far as law. But what did they never give King? Any economic power. They did not give, they did not want to see King with economic power. So King had several quotes. One was, what did I integrate my people into? Yeah, we integrated into white society, but what did we really get? He said, I also led my people into a burning building. Right. So he fought all this time for integration. And then Black folks were still poor, hungry, and didn't own any of America's wealth. You know, here's the thing I always think about is that during the boycott in 1955, Alabama bus boycott, you know, we boycotted the bus system for a whole year. Think about this for a minute. A whole year to do what? Ride on the front seat of white people's bus? That's where King realized he had messed up. Instead of going building your own bus company that Black people can ride on and feel protected, a safe haven, build your own economic infrastructure. Now, where do Black folks sit when Black folks get on the bus? Where they sit? Right to the back of the bus. Now, I don't know what they do now. I ain't been on a bus in a long time, but I remember when I was a kid and I'm riding the bus to school. I used to ride the city bus to school my freshman year because I lived, I live in the south part of Inglewood, 119th Crenshaw, and I went to Morningside my freshman year. So I ride the bus straight up Crenshaw, and I get on that bus and go straight to the back of the bus. I've been in other situations watching Black people. They go straight to the back of the bus. So you mean tell me Black folks protest for a year for Black folks to ride on the front of white people's bus? And then what do? We by default go to the back of the bus. You see how that was a complete waste of time? Now, of course, what it did do is it showed a sense of empower to the white power structure, and it scared them. It showed that if Black people come together, then we can bankrupt you and force you to meet our demands. So I guess maybe that was a purpose, and maybe that was the whole purpose for it. But as far as putting us together economically and empowering Black people financially, that did nothing. And if you notice, when King made the shift from civil rights to start to focus on money, he was dead within a year. Because the one thing that white people don't want, the white power structure, they don't want Black people to build together. That's what they don't want. They'll allow some Black people to make it through the system. I got a degree and I worked in corporate America. They'll allow that. But would they allow a Bill Cosby to go buy an NBC, or an Oprah to buy a CBS? Oh no, you can't get that much power. They'll hire a Black basketball player to play for the Lakers, to play for the Dallas Mavericks, to play for the Clippers. But will a Black man ever own a premier franchise like the Lakers? How about the NFL? Will a Black man ever own a premier franchise like the Dallas Cowboys? No, because at that point, you're talking about ownership, power, and control. And that's where you get the pushback. I mean, we are people that put $2 trillion into this economy, but yet we own 0.5% of America's wealth. When we were freed in 1865, we owned 0.5% of America's wealth. So as far as economically empowerment as a group, we have not moved forward at all. Very little. As a group, other races have passed us. Even Latinos are as a group economically have surpassed Black folks. So you ask yourself, why is the very people who have actually built this nation are the ones that own the least of America's wealth? We made America rich and we own less houses. Our net worth is lower. On the education scale, we're not as high as everybody else. You got Asians, Latinos, Arabs, East Indians that are doing what we did in 1921. But for some reason, we cannot come around and do it again. The very people who built this nation. Now, there's argument that it is the vestiges of slavery, and there's we've been so scarred and so psychologically damaged from slavery, and so much we've been taught to hate ourselves, that we just can't come together. Let me give you an example. This guy named Akil Bashir, he's head of the Peacekeepers organization. He's well known around LA and around the world. So we were on a call together, talking about, how we're going to work in the community and things like that. So I was talking to him about it. I said, man, look, let me tell you something. I'm down with supporting you and all that stuff. But the only real way that Black people are ever going to feel protected, are we ever going to grow, is that we have a city, a town, or an area that is built for us and by us. We control the police, the politicians, the education. We have a hospital, we have a grocery store, and we got banks that invest in Black businesses. Until we got that, we can do all this stuff you want. It's going to keep going on. And if you see, we've gotten laws passed. We put in certain politicians in certain positions. We've gotten, policies pushed through. Don't get me wrong, policy is important. But there has been no dramatic change as systematic change as far as Black people moving forward, as far as economically. Even though we've gotten these things, even though we've gotten these laws change and things like that. And I was telling them the only way we're gonna do is we got to build our own city. That's just the way I see it. So this Black girl was on there. And it's always, a Negro that's going to sit up there and tell some, like I said, we've been taught to hate ourselves and not work together. So I was telling them about my idea about, Kingdomhood, and which is, like a Wakanda or a safe city. And the first thing she says, well, I have a degree in economics, and I'm telling you that's not going to work. I said, okay, you have a degree. Okay, this is what I'm saying. These XYZ or bourgeoisie Negroes. They're gonna tell. First of all, maybe she didn't know that I have a degree. I'm no dummy. I just don't go around spouting about what education I got, because it doesn't matter. So what? You got a degree in economics. So what? So when she says, well, I have a degree in economics, and that's not gonna work. So here's the thing. Here's what I always do. When you have an idea, and everybody's listening to this, when you have an idea, and you want to tell somebody your idea, and you have a player hater that says your idea is not going to work, but they never come back with what will work. Those are people you just shut them off. Just don't even argue with them. Don't even waste your time explaining, because their job is to hate. You're going to tell me my idea wouldn't work. First of all, I didn't even give you the full detail of what I was thinking. But and then she says, well, we did it in 1921 and they bombed it. Yeah. That was 1921. And we did it in Rosewood and they bombed it. Yeah. That was in, I think it was 1910 or somewhere around there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They could do that back then. Yeah. They can bomb it, and then they can make mass graves. They can keep it out of the newspapers. They can do all this. And the other ladies jumped in. She says, well, then they bombed Philadelphia in 1985. I said, yes, they did, but that was under Reagan, and Reagan pretty much militarized the police. They want to blame everything on Clinton and Biden, but if you really want to look at how the police came a paramilitary power occupying police force, that started with Reagan, because Reagan defunded all the drug treatment programs and all the programs that Black folks and Latinos and our Puerto Rican brothers need to live off of, and overfunded the police. So yes, they bombed Philadelphia in 1985, but in 1985 they didn't have social media. We didn't have all these cameras that we have now. So they can't do that now. So this is what she said. They bombed it. We did that and they bombed it. Okay, that was 100 years ago. But you see the slave mentality. And that's what colleges teach. Colleges teach you how to be a better slave. College does not teach you how to be a free thinking empowerment, to be a power broker on your own, right? I got a college degree. I have a degree in business administration. It taught me how to work for somebody else. It did not teach me freedom. Black people do not have freedom. We don't have freedom because we don't have economic power. We own and control nothing, right? You look at Wall Street. White people control Wall Street. White people control Main Street. White people control education. White people control the government. White people control federal policing. You have to beg white people, the white power structure, to get a law passed. Whether it's locally, whether it was state and local government or federal government, you're going to have to beg some white people to get something passed. Period. You may have black faces in high places, but they don't have no power, like Tim Scott over in the Republican Party. He's a black face in a high place. He has no power. Anytime they need him to talk about black folks, they prop him up like a little puppet, like when it was with police reform and all that type of stuff. And you see nothing has gotten done. But as a whole, black people have no freedom because we have no financial cohesiveness, because we've been enslaved to hurt we've been taught through slavery and to hate ourselves. You cannot get black folks to work together. Jews come and here's the thing. Black people, we tend to be very emotional. We're a very emotional people. And that's because the trauma, the psychological trauma we deal with, what we deal with as people of color, as black folks, we go through a lot of trauma. So we let our emotion, and look, Exhibit A, I am one who has done this so many times. We get wrapped up in our emotions and we lose our objectivity of, I need to work with this dude to build something. I ain't got to like him. You think other races, the Jews, the Arabs, the East Indians, the Cambodians, who have built they pretty much own all the donut companies. There's about 900 privately owned donut companies in California, I think, and Cambodians own all of them, 85% of them. Didn't know that, but they do. And they did that. And here, I'm gonna step over here for a minute. I was watching a documentary, and this is a trip how every other race is doing this except us. This guy that came over from Cambodia, I think it's about in the 60s or 70s, he came over to America, and he started the donut business and he started a chain of donuts because when other Cambodians come to America, they have a job. Now the Cambodians own you look at all these privately owned donut shops, Cambodians own them. They have created an empowerment revenue stream. How many black folks have started a chain of businesses just so they can help get black people pulled out of the hood and give them jobs? Now, you have black people who may have put businesses in the black community. Yes, but it wasn't specifically for black people to empower black people that lived in the impoverished neighborhood to give them a job. It's rare. I'm not saying it's probably somebody who's done it, but not to the extent of these Cambodians. So that's just another race that came after us and that has superseded us economically, and they have their own city. But we don't. We don't. The very people who built this country, you got Cambodians that did it. You got every other race that have done what I'm talking about, what a kingdomhood is. So let's talk about how we do this. We talked about the history. We talked about, how our leaders were going down this path of civil rights, but they realized that black people were still poor, hungry, broke, and locked out of the American dream. So what good did it do to put a politician in a certain place? What good did it do to protest? What good did it do to burn down something? What good did it do to get these incremental laws passed? When it came down to economics, black folks were not progressing at all. And King realized that. That's why King said, I think I've led my people into a burning building. And he said, and it's a video, you can go on YouTube and watch it. He says, I feel you guys. I know you guys are not doing well, because he was here in LA actually. And he was talking to a group of people, and he realized where they were at dire strait. So he said, I'm going to go to Washington, and I'm going to get my check. It's on YouTube. Go pull it up. He said, I'm going to get my check. A year later, King had to go. He was out of here. When he started talking about, I'm going to make sure that Black people are empowered financially as a group, not an individual, he had to be out of here. They killed him. He said this, and he started on this financial path in 1967. Okay. By 1968, he was dead. You guys all know the story. So here's what they do. Before I talk about what a kingdom is from part one, finance. In 1970, prior to 1970, Black folks didn't have college degrees. We weren't going to, UCLA. I mean, there were Black people that went there. I'm talking about it as much as we are now is what I'm saying. We weren't going to schools and getting degrees, but what we were doing in the schools, the schools were industrialized. What I mean by that is, in 1970, you can go and from school, and you can graduate out of school and be a certified plumber, a certified electrician, a certified mechanic, masonry, carpentry, construction. You can come out of high school and be because I remember when I was in school, they had these classes, and you can come out of here and you can go right into, you may need to go do some more training, but you had a strong foundation and you can go right and get you a job. These are the skills that pay the bills. Work with your hands. That's what the Bible says. Work hard with your hands and lead a quiet life. Because by default, when everything goes awry, a Black man that knows electricity, that knows how to be an electrician, to do construction, to do plumbing, he's always going to have a job when he can't get a job in corporate America. So Black people were able to get jobs. We had good blue collar jobs, the one now we kind of look down on. We were garbage workers and things like that. Well, what they did after King died, they took all that out of the community. It was an economic castration. Economic castration. They took all that out of the community. Then the CIA. So then you got, for this 10-year period from 1970 to 1980, you got all these Black men out of work, frustrated. Then you notice during the 70s, that's when gang violence started. You had all these egos and all these Black men in the community that are broke and hungry and can't feed themselves, and for the most part can't find jobs because they have no skills. So in 1980, the CIA puts crack in the neighborhood. So the last 10 years, you got Black men who were hungry, no jobs, no education, no self-esteem, and locked out American dreams. Then you give them this crack, and you can do two things. You can sell it so I can feed my family, or I can go hungry. And then that's when the crack wave blew up. And then what they do, they come around in 1990s and pass laws to throw all the Black men in jail that was selling the crack that they put in our neighborhoods in the first place, for the ones in 1970 that didn't have jobs, that had no choice but to sell the crack. Okay, so it was a deindustrialized. It was an orchestrated government plot to make sure that Black people cannot pull themselves together economically. That's what their main fear is that we come together and build another Tulsa-like or another Rosewood-like or a Black community that we own and control. We have our own local government. We have our own supermarkets, our own education systems, that type of stuff. They don't want that at all. They'll give you a law. They'll give you a Black president. They'll give you a bill here and there. You can protest and scream and cry. And we saw Black mothers on TV crying about their sons being killed. What they do? Go kill more Black people. None of that stuff has worked. That's my point. For everything I said before, none of it has worked. As far as all these laws and protesting and all this, none of that worked. So the last result is to build a kingdomhood. That's the last result. I don't see any other options. Please let me know if there are other ones. So how do we build a kingdomhood? First of all, from a far-fetched, there's about 12 cities in for sale in America. If we can spend $2 billion on Michael Jordans, and we can spend $20 billion on hair products and $4 billion on liquor, Why can't black folks come together and buy one of these cities that are for sale? Or if we don't want to do that, the black people, if we could take 10% of our income and give it to a church, these pimps in a pulpit, where a preacher is selling you feel good hope, is not even giving you the real Bible. And we're committed to giving this preacher 10%. The black churches suck $40 million a week out of the black community, and we're in dire straits. So there is money in the churches, and the preachers that got a Bentley and a house on the hill, and they got these big old cathedral churches. I've been in communities, and we're going to talk about religion later on, but I've been in communities where the best looking facility in that community is the church. Beautiful church. Everything around church is just ran down, decrepit, and tore up. There's something wrong with that. So we can do that. Then we can build a community. So how about this? We have a city of our own. We have black banks in our city. Now, where the black people are, the banks will follow. You know why? Because they know that we're going to spend our money. So every time, so we take all our money and we put them in white banks. I got my money in a white bank. We have, and here's the thing. All these billionaires and millionaire black folks, most of their money is in white banks. So the white people are making more money off the money that the black people have anyway. So how about we have in our banks, we have banks, black-owned banks in our particular community that we put all our money into. We can even do this too as well, as far as the economic and finance part. The 10% that you so happily give these bootleg pastors, how about that going to a general fund into a bank? That bank takes that money, that 10%. You give 10% of your check, the same amount you give to a church. We put that into a bank, right? And when with that 10%, that bank gets, that bank has to take that money around and invest it into the community. So they're going to invest. So when you come, so if I come and I want to start a Kingdomhood clothing store, I walk into this black bank and say, hey, I need $50,000. Of course, it's an approval process and things like that, because, you know, everybody can't get all the money they need. So say they may give me $10,000. They say, sir, this is all we can give you based on your job, based on your experience, credit, whatever it may be. I only give you $5,000. Let's say that. But the point is, I have somebody who can finance my empowerment, because I have a black bank, a black-owned bank in a black-owned community. Now, white banks are welcome as well. But if you go to Chinatown and you look at Bank of America and you walk in there, there's none but Asian people in there. And matter of fact, if you go into some part, matter of fact, you can look on the 10 corridor, or if you go into, I'm talking about back up, like around the 605, between 605, I think like maybe like the 57, somewhere around there, you'll see like the Far East Bank. Or if you go into Chinatown, you see the Far East Bank. You'll see the China Bank, right? You'll see that. So why can't we have the same thing in a black neighborhood? It could be called the African Bank, you know, South Central Bank, whatever you want to call it, the Bank of Compton, I don't know, whatever you want to name it. But you won't see that in the black neighborhoods. What do you see in black neighborhoods? Fast food restaurants, which is, you know, fried food to keep you unhealthy, liquor stores to keep you drunk, and check cashing stores to take a large percentage of your check if you dumb enough to go in there and cash it. Why do you think Nick cash checking places and all these are 8 times more concentrated in a black neighborhood than they are in a white neighborhood? Because white people don't go to Nick check cashing. They go to a bank that they own and control. So we have the banks in our neighborhoods that support the black businesses, and their obligation is to take that money and buy real estate, buy commercial real estate within that community, and empower black people who want to start businesses, because it's the foundation of anything is economics. Now, with the bank and that empowerment and that investment, then black people can own businesses, whatever it may be. We can have a Black Wall Street, because in Black Wall Street, they have black banks that finance local businesses. So you have to have a bank. You have to have somebody who's going to finance And you have to have black people who are not politically. See, here's the issue. What I'm saying is not rocket science. It's not something that's really hard. It's that black people are individually, we work hard. Don't get me wrong. Black people can hustle individually, but we are, I should say, group wise, very lazy when it comes to working together and pooling our resource together. We're extremely lazy, docile, just don't want to do it. But yet we're complaining about the way the police treat us. We're complaining about systematic racism. But you won't create your own system. The way you create your own system is have economic power. You cannot build a system without money. This is what white people have done. They have Wall Street. They control the government. They control the banks. They built a system based with money, brick by brick. So we need to mirror that. We need to mirror the same thing. Make sure we invest. So if we have Asian people that have businesses in our community, let me say this. Let me step back for a minute. You cannot go to Chinatown and open up a black business. But I'm not going to say Chinese people or Vietnamese people can't have hair and nail shops. It'll be up to that particular community. But I'll tell you what, black people, a black woman could not open up a hair and nail shop in Chinatown. Something for you to think about. Because right now what's going on is you have all these Arabs and Asian people that own businesses in the black community, but they're taking that business, that money, and they're building their communities. We're financing Asian communities. They're taking our dollars that they work in. They're in a community they don't like, to a people they don't care about, selling products that they know very little bit about. And I'm talking about the beauty supply. And they're not reinvesting that money into the black community. That money's going out of the community. That's why the black dollar stays in the black neighborhood 9 hours, but it stays in the Jewish community, Arab community, white community 9 days, because they go to a grocery store owned by a white person. A white person does. A Chinese person, when they go to the liquor store, a Chinese person owns that liquor store. Not a black man, not a brother. And they're recycled. So here's the deal. A black man owns, and this is something that we used to do. So a black man owns a business, right? My boy owns a business, right? My boy Dwight that does the Bible study. He has a business. What they were doing, the Cambodians that own the donut shops, what those kids were doing, those kids raised up in the business. So what they did, they went to college and they got their degree within marketing or finance. They came back to the family-owned business in a donut shop, and they took it to the next. The parents retired. They took the business to the next level. You have generational wealth that was created. So they took this particular donut shop and they started doing social media. They started doing Twitter and Instagram and digital marketing and social media marketing, the stuff the parents knew nothing about, right? They started doing funny, specialized donuts because the donut industry has changed. But those kids went and got that education and not went and gave their brain power to a white corporation. They got that brain trust that they got from that white university and brought it back to the Asian community and built the Asian community. That's how they built their community. The banks are financing. They have banks, Asian banks that finance Asian businesses. Their kids go to college and they come back and they help take the business to the next level. And they repeat that and repeat that and repeat that. Now, if I'm as a black owner, I got to go to Bank of America. I got to go to Wells Fargo. That was caught targeting and charging black people higher interest rates than white folks. That was caught denying black folks loans because based on the name they saw on the application. They have systematically targeted us with surgical precision to make sure that we do not grow economically. It is so easy. Not easy, but you can get a law passed, but you cannot get economic empowerment into the black community. If you control the economic infrastructure, you control the businesses, right? if you control the business and you control the economic flow, the dollars in and out of that community, and they saw that you're a united front, then you control the police. Then you control the politicians. Then you decide what your kids are being taught when they go to school, because you control the superintendent and the school board. Because, or you can have, or you know, state run has something to say, but you can have private schools that teach self-esteem to Black kids. Now, can white kids live in the community and other kids? Absolutely. There's no saying they can't be here, but they better understand when they come, this is what you're getting. Why do I say that unapologetically? Because if you go to a Jewish school, that's what you're going to get. Now, a Black person can go to a Jewish school, but you're going to learn things about Jewish culture. In fact, down south, they're talking about they don't even want to teach slavery. They don't even want to teach anything about Black history down south. You see that? Because they have the power. We need to come together as a power, as a collective group. And it's done through money. I don't care what anybody tells you. We can get laws passed. You can cry. You can vote for that person. You can vote for this policy. Policy is important. Don't get me wrong. You can vote. You can protest and cry and lobby and all that type of stuff. And Black folks still going to be in the same place until we come together economically and create a financial power as the basis of building a city. That's what's investments and banks. And when you control the city, then you control people who advertise in it. You got billboards that advertise. You got other companies that may want to come in and have businesses or advertise in your neighborhood, or have a business in your neighborhood. They pretty much, if they want to do that, they have to invest here. And anybody who has a business from another race in your community has to reinvest back in that community. Of course, they can make a living and take care of the family, but they have to invest a certain amount of that dollars back into building this community. You can demand that if you want to come in here and do a business. Economic empowerment. The basis of building a community is controlling where the money flow, following the money. The money control. The money's in a Black bank. It's reinvested into Black businesses. You can have Black dealerships. You can have Black, of course, there's already a lot of Black barbershops, but liquor stores, grocery stores, hair and nail shops, beauty supply shops, restaurants, everything is Black owned and controlled. Because that way the dollar, now imagine this is why it's a safe haven. Because when you have, and I'm going to go into police and all of them a little bit later in the next show. But when you have a police, and say he's a white officer, for example, and he's in a progressive, upper class Black neighborhood, and he knows that he's on a Black oversight committee. He knows that we have specific laws and rules of how you engage citizens and what happens to you if you kill a citizen, a Black man unarmed. He knows that, for example, he's going to lose his pension. He knows that he's going to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and he has civilian oversight. Do you think he's going to be so quick to pull his gun and kill a Black person? Oh no, he's not. Because he's going to be truly in community policing, because he is going to respect that community, because it's not a hood. It's not a ran down neighborhood. We got drugs and crime and gangs and all that stuff. It's an upper class community. So the police will look at you different. They will have no other choice to look at. The politicians are going to treat you different, because they know that they're being financed by the Black people in that community. Because Black people, we don't finance anybody. We vote, we don't finance. Okay, so, Black people tend to get into politics to get. White people get into politics to protect. So when you have economics, money, and power, you get into politics to protect what you already have. So the politician is not going to be able to get something. He's going to be there to protect what's in that community, right? So you got that. Then once you got that, you got the school boards. You got you control the education. You have hospitals that are specifically geared towards ailments and sicknesses and how to treating Black people with respect when they go into a hospital. You got grocery stores with healthy food. You got vitamin stores. You got all this stuff that's commandeered with us and built for us by us. But it starts with economics. It starts with power. Now, how does all this have to happen? Black people got to come together and want to build together. If we want to build another Tulsa, we can do it. We did 1921. We can do it now. The point is that we got to stop being so damn lazy. We got to get rid of the slave mentality and stop worrying about, stop worrying about trying to offend massa, or maybe you might lose white people's validation. They don't give a damn about you anyway. Because if they cared about you, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in now. If the system of racism or white people control the system really cared about us, we wouldn't be in these dire straits. They would be a part of helping us move forward and move out, but they don't care. But you know what? It's not their responsibility. It's our responsibility. Nor at this point, it's not their fault. It's our fault. Now, there's certain reasons why we've been targeted not to work together. And just look across America, man. Just look how we move. We are not people who are going to work together at all. I mean, you could just, as a whole, I mean, look, I got brothers that, my Bible study that we love. We're going to come together and do something great. We're working together, but we are exception. We're not the rule. The rule is Black people don't support each other, don't work together for the most part. But the other races do. And that's why we're so far behind. We're so focused on what we can do individually. And, my family, my mortgage, my car note, this and that. And all that's important. You got to take care of number one. But we can get so much faster if we work together. There's an old saying, say, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with somebody. So Black people have gone fast, but we have not gone far because we don't want to work together. That's Kingdomhood 1, part 1. Kingdomhood was never about a logo on a t-shirt. That's not why I started this. That's not what Kingdom was at. That came later. Kingdomhood is a movement. It's a movement to create a safe haven, a safe neighborhood, a safe place for Black folks. It is a city that we own and control like every other race. And it's so funny when Black people talk about building their own and develop, it get all kind of pushback. And it be from other Black people. It don't be from white people, it be from other Black people. It's like we are taught to hate ourselves, man. It's like we have a slave. We're not in the cotton fields physically, but our mind is still there. We still picking cotton, man. It's like, golly, you cannot get Black folks to come. Hey, bro, let's come together and rebuild our neighborhood. We tore it down. Let's rebuild it. Let's start here. Oh, no, that ain't going to work. Oh, no, you can't do that. They ain't going to let you do that. They ain't going to let me do it. What do you mean let? God. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, I'm not wrong, but it could be real frustrating. It's like, do we really want to get better or we don't? Do you really want to improve? Do you really want to stop police from killing Black folks? Do you really want to stop complaining about racism? Do you really want to stop complaining about systematic racism and the way they treat our Black kids? Do you really want to do something about that? I mean, this thing can morph into so many different things. Our young Black athletes, how they exploit us in these colleges. You think about that. Black kids say, you know what? I'm going to a historically Black college to play football. All Black kids went there. They don't want that. Do you know what they would do? Do you know if all black athletes that went into the NBA or the NFL, they said, we're getting Black agents. We're not getting any white agents. Do you know what type of pushback and what type of backlash you would get if that happened? Because they can't control you. I mean, you got these young kids that come out of college and go to NBA. They teach them everything. They teach them everything except who they are. Don't vote. They don't teach them how to vote. They don't teach them how to reinvest their money into a community. They don't teach them, anything about that. Matter of fact, they pull them away from it. I remember Kwame Brown was talking about this. And I'm gonna end with this. Kwame Brown was talking about, he said that he had his agent, we're all white, and this other person, a couple other people, and they came and they took him to this restaurant. And they wanted to eat all this food that he didn't like, because they were trying to fit him into this box, because they want to fit you into this box and make sure that you don't step outside the box. And I remember him saying, he said he got up and he walked across the street and got him some fried chicken, brought the fried chicken back to the restaurant and sat down and said, this is what I want to eat. That's just an example of what they do. They are control. They'll give you the money in those situations, but they will not give you any power. Same with our communities. They're going to give you a salary. They're going to give you money. But when you try to build a city, when you try to become self-dependent as a race, that's when you get the most pushback. That's why there are no black towns in America. There are none. And they don't want us to build one. Why? Because you won't need them. You'll be able to own and control your own destiny, for the most part, if you do that. And it'll be safe for you. They want you to protest and lobby and cry, because they're just going to listen to you and ain't going to do a damn thing. Let's get together. Let's build a community. Let's start with economic power. And I was very general. There's a lot more detail that can go into this, but I'm just giving you a general thing. The first thing of building a community is you got to get the finances together. And that's by having black banks and investments in that black banks, and making sure that bank invests that money back in that community to build houses, to build commercial businesses, to build commercial real estate, and also to finance the empowerment of black ownership in that community. And any of these other races that want to have a business in our community, their money must go into that black bank. Otherwise, you can't do anything. And you need to create 10% of your wealth into that from your business to reinvesting into the community. You can call it philanthropic obligation. All companies have philanthropic ambitions where they give money to the community. Well, fine. If you want to be an Arab or an Asian and be in the black community, fine. Take some of your money and build a boys club, after school programs, supporting single women and children. But it's going to be back in that community. Do that and see what happens. Let's start there. Economics. That's part one. Kingdomhood. We did it in 21. We did it in 1921. We can do it again. We are economically powerful people. We're just not using our economics in the right direction. It's time that we do that. Focus on the money. Let's build a Kingdomhood. Let's build a Wakanda. Let's build another Tulsa. Let's build another Rosewood. And this time they won't be able to take it from us. God bless you. Kingdomhood Conversation. Next week, we're going to talk about politics. We got the economic structure now. Now we're going to talk about what we're going to do with these politicians and make sure that they're supporting the economic investment that we put in them, and how they're going to actually use our tax dollars to design the look and feel of the look and feel of the city. That's extremely important now, because your dollars are not going to build the city. I mean, they're not going to do the roads and the lights. They're not going to build the schools. This is a private school, the city school. That's where your tax dollars. But when you control the economic power and you control the finance in that city, and you finance the politician's campaign, then they're going to do something then. They're going to do something then. Black folks do not finance politicians. We vote, but we ain't financing a damn thing. We focus on money. All this other stuff. Forget about all this other shit. Focus on financing. White people, you got CPAC, the Republican Party. You know why Mitch McConnell and all them act the way they act? Because their campaign is financed by the billionaires, these white corporate owners. And they say, this is what you're going to do. And if you don't do this, we're gonna finance, we're gonna primary your ass. What we're gonna do is we're gonna find a candidate, we're gonna finance him and run him against you and make sure you lose. Yeah. That's why the Republicans the way they are, because their donors, you got the gun lobbyists, you got the alcohol lobbyists, all these lobbyists that are saying, we're going to finance your campaign and you need to protect our interests. Remember what I said before? Black people get into politics to get, white people get in politics to protect. So now that we have a financial infrastructure for our community, we're going to put the policy, we're going to buy him. Let me say it. We're going to buy him to protect what we built. Next week, we'll talk about politics. Thanks for tuning in to Kingdomhood Conversation. We are building something big. Tell me about it, man. We are building something that we can be proud of. Our own Black community. This is not a disrespect to any other race. Other races may live in that community. No problem with that. But they're going to understand it's a Black community, right? Because when we get a degree, we get a job, what do? Run to a white community. What do? Live like white folks. Understand their culture. We do what, we go over there and take them a pumpkin pie. No one Black folks, damn pumpkin pie. We take them a pumpkin pie. Say, here, Kirk or Alec or whatever their name is, or Becky or Sally or Heidi. Here's a pumpkin pie. Not a sweet potato pie. They don't know what the hell that is. But anyway, you're going to live like white folks. You live in that neighborhood, right? And you get along with white people. Well, why can't it be the reverse? See, when you build your community, you're going to have white people that came out of the trailer park that want to come to a Kingdomhood. They want to come to a Wakanda. Look at this beautiful Black neighborhood with these Black people with all. My vision is you got Black people with all this money. Black people with all this money, man, that are living well, and white people want to come live in that neighborhood. And if they don't, fine. I don't want your ass, don't come. But I tell you what, Becky won't be calling the police on you. That's for damn sure. That's what she won't be doing. Because in the Black community, you call the police on a Black man for nothing, you go to jail. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, I get excited when I talk about this stuff, man, because I'm telling you, this is the answer. This is the only thing we can do now. We ain't done everything else. Let's build a city, man. Let's build a kingdomhood. God bless you guys out. We will talk next week. Later.